Hey guys, and welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where you can find encounters with some real oblivious people. So be sure to like and subscribe, and we're getting right into it. I don't work for you, stop calling me. So I was in the service line at my local grocery store to get a money order because it is far cheaper than the bank. The line is very long, so I take out my phone and browse Reddit to pass the time. Suddenly I hear an "excuse me" from the man behind me. He nicely asks if he can use my phone to call his boss, and that it was important. I obliged, and he stepped out of line for a bit, but I could still kind of hear the conversation. It sounded like the person on the other line was furious, and the man could only get in yes and okay. It was a quick conversation, and he gave me back my phone sheepishly and left the line. His boss must have really been upset with him to make him leave this line. It was extremely long and slow moving, and we had been in it for about 20 minutes at this point, and weren't even at the front. However, I thought nothing of it. That was my mistake. About a half hour later, I get a call from the number the man had called. It was a gruff-sounding man on the other line, asking me where I was, quite rudely I may add. I told him I don't work for him, and hung up because I was driving. Mistake number 2. Later, when I am at my job at the library, I keep getting calls from the number. I work tutoring students, so I ignored the calls, but they kept coming. Finally, I pick up, and our conversation went like this. "Stop calling. I do not work for you. I am at the library working with students, and I can't keep bothering with my phone." "Why on earth are you at the library? You need to pick up this for me now," said the boss. "I do not work for you," I respond. "You won't if you keep up with this behavior," he said. I just hung up and blocked the number at that point. I couldn't deal with him anymore. I just hope I did the right thing. The man I let borrow my phone seemed like a nice guy, and I don't want him to get in trouble. Edit. I did try to explain to the boss that I just let the man borrow my phone, but that apparently went in one ear and went out the other. That really seems to be the main culprit for a lot of these encounters, is people just not listening, being so absolutely sure of themselves about what exactly is going on that they don't even bother to try to listen to anybody else. You're always a waitress. It doesn't matter what restaurant we're in. I'm a waitress at a local restaurant. On my day off, I scheduled a lunch date with a guy from school. Of course, not at the restaurant where I work, somewhere else. Traffic was brutal, so he was running late. I was sitting at my table looking at the menu. Again, not at the restaurant I work at. Different part of town. Entirely different cuisine, even. A woman came up and ripped my menu out of my hands. She grunts, "Why are you just sitting here? We've been waiting for service for 45 minutes. No, they hadn't. They came in the same time I did, 10 minutes ago, and they had already gotten drinks. So not wanting to get sucked in, I just quipped, "Ma'am, I don't work here," without making eye contact or even raising my voice. I still didn't recognize her at this point. She gets especially heated and spews, "Don't lie to me, you're a waitress. You served me just last week, don't you remember?" That's when I vaguely began to remember her coming into the restaurant, not because I have an especially good memory, but because she was hard to forget. She came to our Mexican restaurant, complained that her meal had been served with hot sauce on the side, then sent it back after we remade it with the hot sauce inside because it was too spicy. So I patiently explained, with more patience than she deserved, but bearing in mind she could come to our place again. I am a waitress at insert Mexican restaurant you've been to before, but I am not a waitress at insert burger bar we're in now. She is totally blank and says, "Okay, so you are a waitress? Get a pen and paper and take down our orders. We've been waiting." She was starting to raise her voice at that point, so any civility or poise I was exercising kind of went out the window. I laid out pretty firmly, "I am a waitress, but not here. I'm just trying to order my lunch like you are. I am not employed here in any capacity." To which she replies with a straight serious face, "But you're a trained waitress, and this place is clearly running behind. Don't you people take an oath or something?" A little bit of malicious compliance kicked in, because I rarely get to stand up to this kind of stupidity in my role as a server, because 99.9% of the time it happens while I'm actually at work. So I got a pen and paper I keep in my bag, and I approached their table. I wrote down all their orders. Then I told them that, as they noticed, the place is busy, so it would be about 45 minutes, and they should just sit tight. I even brought over some ketchup they asked for. I just grabbed it off another table. Then I left. I texted my date to meet me at a place a few blocks over. It was a nice time, by the way. The next day, the lady had called my boss at my actual restaurant, so I guess she did understand my telling her I worked elsewhere, as well as totally unleashed on the manager at the restaurant I was dining at. So maybe she didn't understand? I felt bad when I realized the tough spot I'd left the people who actually worked at the burger place in, so I went back the next day to apologize and follow up on the aftermath. Thankfully, they were chill and we had a laugh over it. The guy I talked to said, "We were so confused because she described the server with explicit details, but no one remotely like that works here. We thought she lost her mind." My boss knew who I was from her description and told them he takes this very seriously and asked what day this occurred. When they told him, he said, "You must be mistaken, because that's that server's day off, and she wasn't here." After some irate yelling and screaming at my very friendly manager about how I still need to represent the restaurant wherever I go, she gave up. Now to just cross my fingers she doesn't come by my actual restaurant. My house shares a similar address to a local retail store. I moved to a small countryside town a couple of years ago. I live on a road with a dead end for traffic that has a walkthrough to the local shops and a small shopping precinct, all classed technically to be along the same road. The precinct starts across the road from the end of the walkthrough. The shops on the precinct are numbered from 1 to 20, as it's not very large. There are only a handful of houses on my road, so again we have small numbers associated with our address. So my address reads 5, my street name, town, local postcode. The precinct store reads 5, the precinct name, my street name, town, and same local postcode. On a few occasions, it's become apparent that people have just put in the street name and postcode when looking for the store. Their sat-nav has then brought them to my road, and they have looked for, I guess, number 5. Normally, when I get a knock at the door, I explain to the store's customers and point them in the right direction. There is a small car park for the precinct. They often apologize and some even feel embarrassed. One day around 6 months ago, I get a Karen. There is loud tapping at my front door. I wonder who could be making such a racket. I open the front door to see a lady around her mid-40s, very well dressed, long blonde hair, the very well pampered type. "I've come to pick up my balloons," said Karen. "Oh, you're looking for such and such store. It's in the shopping precinct. There is no way through by car. Let me give you directions," I said. "Hang on a minute, my sat-nav said this is the address." She's holding up her phone with Google Maps. "Yeah, that happens a lot. However, your sat-nav is wrong and the shop is in the precinct." "My sat-nav is not wrong. I'm in far too much of a hurry for this. I would like you to stop messing around and get my paid-for balloons." "I'm sorry, but I'm a private home, not a business. Bye." I shut the door, and Karen proceeds to start knocking my knocker again and demanding I answer the door. I open the door once again, and without saying a word, Karen walks straight past me into my house, bumping my shoulder on the way in. I raise my voice a bit and tell her to get out of my house. She ignores me until I step in her way and block her path, but she is already completely inside my house at this point. She seems to finally get it as she turns around and leaves my house without another word. She stormed off, and I could see through the window she was talking angrily on her phone and walked off down the road towards the walkthrough, leaving her car in my driveway, blocking my own car in. Around an hour later, she returned with her balloons and other shopping bags, got in her car and left. A couple of days later, I went into the store to talk to the owner about if it was a possibility to email customers when they purchase online regarding the address situation, as I was a little annoyed by Karen. When I explained about Karen, the owner said she knew exactly who I meant. Karen had called the store and had ranted at them the whole time the owner was giving her directions to the store. When Karen had got to the store, she had ranted about how I had wasted her time and was rude to her, and how the store needed better customer service. Side note, I'm in the UK, so a shopping precinct is, I guess you could call it, an open-air shopping mall. I'm not a lawn mowing service. This one actually happened last year, but it was short enough that I still remember it pretty clearly. I live in a very small town, where everybody can more or less recognize everybody else by sight, if not by name, so I have no idea what this lady's excuse is. I was out mowing my lawn, headphones on and music up loud enough to hear over the engine. Note that a set of double railroad tracks runs right through the middle of the city. It's not unusual for both streets that cross it to be blocked for a few hours by a parked train, as was the case on the day in question, but there's an overpass less than a quarter mile up the road. I realized after a couple of mowing passes that there's been a Mustang stopped at the stop sign by the house for probably a good minute and a half. The driver, too young to be a proper Karen but definitely training up for it, is looking my general direction. But at first, I think she's just looking at the train and trying to figure out how to get around it. But no, she's looking at me. So I turn the mower off and take off my headphones. I figure she just wants to ask me if there's a way around the train, since we're sandwiched between two state routes, and it's a question I've been asked a few times before. Need something? I ask. I was wondering, if you're mowing lawns, would you be willing to do mine once a week for $10? Not what I was expecting, but hey, I've heard worse offers. I use mowing for both exercise and time to hide in my own thoughts for a while. I decide to at least poke at it a bit. So I say, I'm mowing my lawn, I live here, but maybe, depends on the yard and how local you are. Oh, I'm just up on blank street. At this point, I recognize her car, so I know roughly where she lives. Her lawn is probably 2 acres and made of hills. I don't need that much exercise or me time. So I say, sorry, but no. That's... Interrupting and huffing, she says, what, is $10 not enough? Kids these days, honestly. When I was in high school, I would have been happy to earn an extra $10 a week. As a side note, I'm not a kid. I'm 6'3", and while I do look young for my age, I was in my mid-40s at the time. Sure, I was wearing one of my old technical college t-shirts, but my mustache and goatee are starting to go gray for crying out loud. After looking at her for a moment, I say, pardon me, but how old are you? Sneering, she responds with, I don't see what that has to do with anything, but I'm 26. I sigh and roll my eyes. Kid, I was out of high school before your parents ever f***ed. I still feel kinda bad about being the one to initiate cursing, but it definitely got her attention. Yay for precision F strikes, I guess. And with that, I put my headphones back on and started the mower, while she was just inarticulately sputtering at me. I'm pretty sure she tried to say something else, but it was lost to engine noise and music. That is it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. If you got all this way, be sure to drop a like, and also subscribe to the channel for more Karen stories. So I'm out of here. Have an awesome day, everyone, and until next time.